Amphibians. Oops. Okay. Amphibians, we're talking about the gymnophionids, which are the caecilians, not the ones who live off of Italy. The caudates, which are the salamanders and newts, and the anurans, which are the frogs and the toads. The gymnophionids are typically burrowing, feeding on soil invertebrates. They appear segments because of folds in the skin, and therefore they're often mistaken for earthworms. Their fertilization is internal, and they have larval stages within oviducts. So this is a typical gymnophionid. A lot of them are tropical. Costa Rican is where I saw mine. I have to dig them up. The caudates, the salamander, tail throughout their life. So compare that to frogs and toads. Incidentally, that does have a tail. Unspecialized legs. You're comparing that again to frogs and toads. They are terrestrial with aquatic larvae, except for the plethodontids. Plethodontids are the exception to just about every rule, and they do include redback salamanders, which are probably the most abundant salamander around here. The aquatic ones are the newts. They are called Salamantridae. Do not ask me why newts are in the family Salamantridae, which sounds like it should be salamander. They just are. Internal fertilization. They use a spermatophore, which is a packet of sperm. And that packet of sperm is picked up in a pouch called a spermatheca. So the salamander, the female salamander, puts the spermatophore in her spermatheca, and then as she lays each egg, it passes over the spermatophore and picks up a sperm. Not what you think of when you think of internal fertilization, but that is internal fertilization. Larvae with external gills, tail fin, rudimentary tongue. Some of them are paedomorphic, which means that they have external gills. So mud puppies are paedomorphic. These are just examples of eggs, larvae, adult salamanders. So salamanders, many of them follow the similar life stages as, and newts too, that frogs and toads do. So kind of a little tadpole. There you have it. The anurans or the Salientia. Anuran is more recent. Salientia has never really been discarded. So that's why it's there. Adults lack tails. They have caudal vertebrae fused into a urostyle. So what you have is a solid fusion of vertebral column and no tail. Webbed feet. Fertilization is now external in this group. So eggs are laid, sperm are released over them. Eggs and larvae are aquatic, called the larvae tadpoles, and larvae are herbivorous, in contrast to the adults, which are carnivorous. Look, an anuran, an American toad. The group as a whole. Keratin deposits on the skin produce warts, but the entire skin is not keratinous. Why? Because that decreases the possibility for respiration across the skin, which amphibians are capable of. They do have glands in their skin. Some of them, the glandular glands, are for noxious or toxic secretions. Mucus glands prevent drying out. So they have to have those so that their skin does not dry out. They also have chromatophores, and those are for color and color changes. Their skull is flattened and has fewer bony pieces than fish. The skull and musculature modified for capturing and holding prey they have, which is not present in the fish. Fish, little tiny mouths. Frogs, big gaping ones. Why? Because they're much more capable of capturing prey. Bring something in with their tongue even and hold it. Vertebral column, they have zygapophyses, which are found here. These are the little outcroppings on each of the vertebrae that are not present prior to this. Keep going down here. Sternum supports the forelimbs and the internal organs, and a pelvic girdle. You should have seen these on your frog skeletons. So see here, we see them. Here we have the urostyle, which is what the vertebral column becomes, rather than continuing to be this. Pattern of leg movement in salamander locomotion is significantly different compared to what you see in the frogs and the toads. You see legs coming together on one side while they are spread apart on the opposing side, and S formations in the vertebral column. This becomes highly significant actually when we look at vertebral column movement, shape during movement. It becomes highly significant when we look at evolution of mammals in marine mammals way down the road. Nutrition and digestive system. Carnivores as adults, herbivores as larvae. What this does is decreases competition for food. Prey capture and grab. Got it right here. By the way, this tongue is not like rolled up like in those little toys that you had when you were a kid. It's a big lump of a muscle. Circulation, gas exchange, and temperature regulation. Less efficient separation of pulmonary and heart circuits than you find in lungfish, because you've got a lot of muddy waters here. We have cutaneous, which is skin respiratory gas exchange, as well as lung gas exchange going on. There is, however, when amphibians are submerged, they do cut off blood supply to the lungs because it's no use to them there. So separation between respiration and pulmonary systems here is pretty sloppy. Well-developed lymphatic system here. Cutaneous respiration is about 30 to 90%, depending on the species. Bucopharyngeal respiration, 1 to 7%. Pulmonary it creates a positive pressure. You still have some larvae, most of the larvae, and some of the adults that use gills. To get oxygen into the lungs, it is a pattern of things that have to happen. First, they open up the mouth and oxygenated air is let into the bottom of the mouth. And at that same time, the lungs are opened up. Then they squeeze the lungs using muscles around it, closed, and force out the stale deoxygenated air, okay, over top of the new air that has oxygen in it. Then close the mouth, and through the glottis, let in, open up the lungs, let in the oxygenated air. Close up the glottis, and then do another exchange. Temperature regulation, they're ectothermic, of course, so they are behaviorally regulating their temperature. They're cooling if by being nocturnal or by burrowing, and they're warming by basking. They do have skin receptors. They also have good chemoreception, either in their mouth or in their skin, sometimes around their nose. They tend to be vision feeders. They have binocular vision, so both of their eyes are seeing the same thing. So they could have good depth perception, necessary if you're going to be a predator. Eye structure and function, they have a nictitating membrane that lubricates and washes their eye, so it keeps it in good shape. It also accommodates, also is accommodated by lens movement. Hearing is good in the frogs, not so much so in the salamanders. So when I say frogs, by the way, I mean frogs and toads, and when I say salamanders, I'm talking about salamanders and newts. So the groups. Why the difference? Well, auditory communication, very common among frogs and toads, not at all common among the salamanders and newts. So frogs and toads have a tympanic membrane, which is essentially an eardrum on the surface of their skin. They also, some vibrations may be able to be picked up on substrate and then evaluated that way. So here we have the nictitating membrane, which is below the eyelid, eyelid, nictitating membrane, helps keep the eye clean and moist. Excretion and osmoregulation. Kidneys are along the dorsal body wall. They do excrete ammonia or urea depending on the situation. If you're in the water and you don't have to detoxify your waste as much, it'll go into the water column and you're not going to resorb it. But an amphibian skin is highly porous and it will resorb anything you excrete if it's not going to go into the water column. So if you're on land, you're going to detoxify it and excrete urea. Osmoregulation, when you're in water, you're going to excrete excess water and conserve those ions. You need to have kidneys and a urinary bladder to do that for you. On land, you have to conserve water. You'll do that behaviorally by being nocturnal or body posture, or you can resorb water through your skin. You can also store water. It's water conservation. Reproduction and development. Two different sexes. Fertilization is external. Development usually in water, except for the plethodontids. Courtship in the salamanders is by olfactory and visual cues usually, tactile and auditory cues in the frogs and toads. This grasping by the male's the smaller one, he's on the back, female's the larger. So females will release the eggs, males will release sperm over them. Basically the male is holding onto the female, waiting for her to release eggs, and hoping that he gets to release sperm when she does. Vocalizations, very common in the males, used to attract females to breeding grounds and establish territory. The song that he uses is species specific. From it, they can give clues about the size of the male. Parental care, you can give attendance to either the egg by either parent. You can also transport eggs and offspring on your back. Not common, but it does happen. Metamorphosis is controlled by a variety of glands. In salamanders and caecilians, it's relatively minor. In the frogs, you go tadpole to frog. This is the pattern of behavior. In the events of metamorphosis in the California, this is the pattern for the red-legged frog.